Hey everyone, and welcome to Rambling Reviews, where we analyze different types of media and or their cultural relevance. My name's Christian, and this is Modern Family, Season 1, Episode 3, Come Fly With Me. This episode was written by Dan O'Shannon, who had previously worked on Cheers, as well as Frasier, sensing a pattern here, right? As well as Reggie Hudlin, who was previously the president of BET, as well one of the producers for Quentin Tarantino's Django Unchained. At this point, you know the characters, you know the premise, the setup of the show and everything, so let's just jump right into it. We open with Phil having a very common moment I'm sure many people are familiar with, where Claire is asking him to take out the trash, but he's too engrossed in the baseball game he's watching to actually, do it. He is getting to it, but he's getting to it very slowly, kind of inching away, and by the time Claire finally gets fed up with it, he says, "Oh, I was just about to do that." And, while this, of course, is played for laughs, this is a very common instance that happens in a lot of relationships, and it's a pretty common example of where the woman often does a lot of the household chores and stuff, and you'll have oftentimes the man kind of saying "Oh, I was just about to do that," but at the same time we do see that Phil was actually about to do it. He was just having a hard time pulling himself away. So I mean, I get it, and of course it is played for laughs, but I think it's an interesting kind of moment of very light social commentary on that common family dynamic as well. But here we have the setup kind of for the main plot of the episode, as we'll get into it in a bit here, as we have Dylan showing up at the door, and we have this kind of funny moment where because Claire goes out to take out the garbage, she's like, "Oh, Dylan, did you even ring the doorbell?" And he's like, "No, I texted Haley." And she's like, "Oh, okay." So, on one hand, first of all, very, common and relatable experience for a lot of people who have, grown up more around my age or a little bit older, a little bit younger even, where you don't really ring doorbells anymore. We just kind of, text people to let them know when we're, at the door or whatever it is, or in the driveway or wherever it is. But at the same time, it can also be kind of seen as a level of disrespect to not let the parents know that Dylan is there, but only be letting Haley know. So either way, one of those things where again it's played for laughs. But the real meat of this interaction here is basically as he's waiting for Haley, Phil offers him to sit with him, and the two are chatting about the baseball game, where Phil basically says about how there's this guy on the team that's trying to, stuck on second base and is probably going to steal third, which is going to be a terrible idea. And then he asks Dylan just nonchalantly, "So, anyway, how are you and Haley?" And there's no way to know for a fact, if he's, because Phil is kind of seemingly clueless, and like I said before, kind of too innocent and pure for this world in a lot of ways. So it could very well be that he didn't mean anything by that question. He's just simply asking, how are you? He doesn't see the kind of metaphor there as Dylan does. Meanwhile, we have Jay, who just got a new model airplane that he can't wait to, let's be honest, play with. I mean, yes, he is going to fly it, but isn't that essentially what playing with a plane looks like? I know a lot of people would get, kind of touchy about that kind of thing with, be it a plane or a model rocket or something, where launching it, they'd be like, "Oh, it's not a toy, it's a replica," which, okay, but I mean, it's still a toy. You don't have to be embarrassed about calling it a toy. But the whole thing here is that Jay is basically excited to have a day alone and just kind of, play with his plane, whereas Manny is getting ready to go on, he's getting ready to visit the Dumfies and kind of have a play date with Luke. So he's going to have this time alone to him, or so he thinks. That'll pay off in a bit here. And, we'll see how that goes moving forward. And finally, we have Mitchell and Cameron on their way to Costco as Mitchell protests. And it's basically explained that Mitchell is very much a snob, and Cameron has no issue going to Costco. Now, I don't think I've ever actually been to Costco. We've only recently gotten them in my area. But growing up, I did go to a place called Sam's Club, which is very similar. It's kind of it's owned by Walmart, so Costco, Sam's Club and Walmart are very much, similar, but it's a big it's what's called a big box store, as we'll see later. And I never understood the snobbiness of people that don't want to shop at. And the thing is, Costco and Sam's Club are like even more expensive than somewhere like Walmart. I never understood people that are like too like think they're too good to like shop at like Walmart or Target or something. And I don't know. I never understood it, but I don't know, I guess it's just how some people are. But now we're finally ready to set up the actual plot of the episode as basically, after Phil scares off Dylan, you know, um, Claire kind of mentions to Phil about how, because he's, trying so hard to kind of, in some way be on good terms with Dylan and, make him feel comfortable, but also be, protected or whatever, or protective of Haley still. Um, and he says he's all about, keeping it real and things like that. To which, Claire mentioned you never, try to keep it real with Mida. It's like, come on, we're buds. And essentially this causes Phil to then go over to Jay's house unprompted and try to hang out with him, where Jay was obviously very much looking forward to just spending the day alone, whereas Phil is wanting to hang out with him. So now we have our setup and our conflict, if you will. We do have one more little, piece of side story that I think is pretty important here, where we have Haley needing to get ready for a wedding of one of Claire's friends that she mentions, even a friend of hers she doesn't even know, someone she doesn't even care about, basically. And yet she's basically being forced to wear a dress. She doesn't want to do this, and she expresses that wearing a dress very much conflicts with kind of who she is, how she views herself as a person, and of course everyone's trying to get her to just wear the dress anyway. Now we do have a little joke, here as well about how Luke is not wearing anything, so he's definitely not ready. But you have this whole bit where, and I think this will set up a very interesting dynamic where effectively we're going to see that. Oh. And with this whole dress situation, Gloria offers to take out not Haley. Gloria offers to take out Alex to find a dress that she'd actually like. Interesting that I actually kind of slipped up there and said Haley, by the way, because one of Alex's big problems here is she even tells her mom she doesn't want to borrow one of Haley's dresses because then she'll look like Haley. I do wonder how one of Haley's dresses would actually fit her, considering they're a few a decent amount of ages apart, but whatever. Meanwhile, Phil is awkwardly trying to help Jay put the plane together as he's basically just kind of, holding in and letting Jay do all the work, as Jay even tells him once it's done not to touch it, and then begrudgingly asks if he'd like to fly it. Mitchell and Cameron are now at Costco doing their shopping as Mitchell is begrudgingly along for the ride. After we have a cute little, moment in the interview section about how they met through a charades game night, Mitchell sees a printer that he really wanted and is immediately enamored with Costco. From this point, there's not really too much to kind of, analyze about Kim and Mitchell's part of the story. It's just them running around Costco and, Mitchell now being enamored, wanting to get all these different things. They only went in there for diapers, but as we'll see later, they're going to get a lot more. We'll address that briefly when we get to it. But we have this moment where, after not really having the best experience trying to hang out with Luke, Manny tries, just kind of discussing and being there for Claire, as he can tell that she seems kind of sad. We do have a little note as well, too, about how she refers to herself. She's like, oh yeah, you called me sis. I guess I technically am your stepsister. And Manny says that, his mom, Gloria, says not to use the word step because to them it means not real and they're a real family. And I think that's really sweet. It's one of those little moments there where, again, yes, it's put, it's kind of a little joke as well, but I'm telling you, man, just so much about this show really does balance humor and heart just so well. It's incredible. But we have this cute moment where basically Manny kind of gets Claire to open up to her as a therapist, where, like, She says, oh, it's just Alex, just, kid stuff. And he says, oh, you don't have to tell me. My school's full of them. And we have this bit where I gotta say, looking at, like, especially the kid version of myself, I love and I think relate the most to Manny because he's very much kind of an old soul. He's, people would say he's wise behind his years or beyond his years, as my parents would say, my dad still says, which isn't always the best. Like when you are, the therapist for your, family members and stuff, as Manny is being here, it's not really the best position for a kid to be in. But regardless, it's the position he essentially finds himself in, and it is what it is. But yeah. We then see Alex and Gloria having some lunch at the mall where, Gloria tells Alex that they can, to just think of her as one of her girlfriends and they can talk about anything. Where Alex understandably explains that, adults always say that kind of stuff, but they never really mean it. But Gloria throws her a curveball and is like, all right, you know what? I'll be honest. You can actually ask me anything. I'm not gonna hold anything back. When Alex immediately asks her, all right, well, how many men have you slept with? Gloria immediately just answers 8. And Alex is so impressed by this answer and this honesty that she begins to kind of, open up and allow them both to have this proper dynamic. And I think this is a really good way to go about doing this because, like, kids will, like, I think back even to, like, when I was a kid and stuff. If a kid isn't shown by an adult that they can, like, actually trust them, the adult's going to be honest with them, like, at all times when they ask them stuff, why would the kid in return be honest themselves? Like, you have to have that give and take, and we're seeing a good example of that here, I think. Back with Jay and Phil, it's clear that the, eagerness to just kind of, hang out and really get along and bond with Jay is really getting on his nerves as he tells Phil to hold a ring so that he can fly the model plane through. As he does so, Jay runs the plane directly into Phil's face, knocking him down and giving him a bloody nose. Of course, he tries to tell Phil that, he moved and everything, where Phil's like, no, I didn't move. You hit me with the plane, Like, he's not fallen for, Jay's bluff. He feels it was very much intentional. Meanwhile, we have our therapy session with Manny and Claire as she really opens up to him, about not understanding what's going on with Manny, with Alex. Whereas, Manny explains, he's like, well, the dress makes her feel like she isn't herself. And, Claire asks, well, would it be so wrong for her to just not be herself for one afternoon? To which Manny gives the very honest and insightful response, I wouldn't give up being myself for 1 second. This really helps to put the situation in perspective for Claire. And one thing that I do want to mention is, Alex is very much, a tomboy that kind of fights against being a girly girl in a lot of different ways. And I think I know this is something that gender non-conforming people can very much understand because, like, I have a friend and a fellow coworker who, in our office, at certain times we have to dress up a bit more professional. And when we do, they often have to wear a dress because that's what their biology would dictate they're supposed to wear. Obviously, these are all, social and cultural things that are foisted upon us depending on, all kind of different things. But it makes them uncomfortable when they have to do that. And I totally get that. And, this is an example of something where people of all sorts, have issues when they have to do something that kind of compromises their identity in a certain way. I've never really had it so much in regards to things like what I've had to wear, but more so what I've been told to wear. Like, I've had people recommend to me to, like, wear or do certain things that just don't feel right to me, like, as a person with my style and different things, and I'm like, it just isn't me, it doesn't feel right for me. So I totally get that. And I think anybody can relate to that concept. Back at Costco, we see Mitchell has completely bought into and fallen in love with the concept of big box stores and just getting all this stuff is they have these multiple carts and even get one of those flatbed things to carry more stuff. Again, remember, they just went in for diapers originally, and now here they are. Mitchell is just obsessed with all of this. And I love how, obviously we very much turned this on its head, where we started with Mitchell being the snob about the whole thing, whereas now, he's totally into it. And finally, back with Alex and Gloria once again, we have them finishing up their conversation as Gloria answers one last question about tattoos that she has, and she asks Alex, now that she's answered all her questions, why doesn't she want to wear the dress? And essentially, it's a very similar thing as to what Manny says, where, Alex says she doesn't want to conform to this. She doesn't want to be like Haley and her stupid friends, as she says. Now, Gloria, kind of puts it into her perspective and says, basically, one day as you get older, you're going to want to, attract the attention of men, and you're going to want to look nice in a nice dress. And while there is absolutely truth to this, obviously, there's, when it comes to your style, no matter your age or anything, there is also truth to, like, oftentimes things that we do that are, not as, and maybe kind of are a bit like, gender non-conforming or something, oftentimes in order to attract the attention of those that we want to attract, it does help to be more gender conforming and more conventionally attractive in different ways. I can speak on this too a little bit. For the longest time, I had the emo bangs. I didn't have a beard at all, and any kind of facial hair. I refused to wear anything other than jeans. I didn't wear sneakers. I refused to wear those. I always wore like either dress shoes or boots, all these different things, right? But as I got to a point where I realized that in order to make myself more conventionally attractive, it would be better if I styled my hair differently, grew out some facial hair, styled myself a little bit differently, my clothes and stuff. It became something where I could find variance or I could find like room in like, okay, I want to do things that still feel right for me, but also are things that are more conventionally attractive. So, and make myself more attractive to those that I find attractive, to the type of women that I find attractive. In my case, in Alex's case, she wants to attract the attention of men. And I understand what Gloria is getting at here, and I can see how people could look at this today and say, like, that's problematic advice or something, or that's, I don't know, pushing gender norms or something, and I can understand that criticism, but I do think that overall this is good advice. I think the caveat would kind of be, as I said, that find ways that appeal to typical sensibilities, I guess you could say, like what people would tend to like and maybe expect someone like you to dress as, but do it so in a way that still fits with your style. I think that's kind of the best, like, advice anybody can be given on that concept. But either way, it's a very sweet moment between Alex and Gloria, if nothing else. After all this, Gloria brings Alex back home, where we have we see the therapy session coming to an end, as Claire basically tells Alex, look, we've been talking and come to the decision you don't need to wear the dress, where Alex is like, it's all right, I got one already. Claire then tells Manny, like, you see how she provokes me? And he just responds, we'll talk about it next week. And I love that, like, he, it really is just kind of taking that, like he's her therapist, which again, I know from experience, not necessarily the best for your mental health in real life, but it's a cute little moment here. And finally, Jay brings Phil back home as well, as everyone, of course, calls out Jay for flying the plane into his face. He's like, I told him not to move, he moved. Phil's like, no, I didn't. And, everyone is just like, okay, look. And Claire kind of just, lays in him. She's like, he's trying so hard to be on good terms with you, to be like a friend to you. You've never even told him you loved him. You never told him you liked him. And then Gloria's even like, wait, you've never told your son you love him? He's like, well, who said anything about love, you know? And she's like, oh, so I guess you don't love Manny either? Because he's like, he's not even my real son. She's like, well, I guess you don't love Manny either because he's not your real son. And, you know, we have this whole dynamic where basically it's found out that Jay has been very reserved with expressing any love and adoration for any of his family here, or at least the people that aren't his immediate family. And Claire even mentions to him, like, she's like, that, how do you think that makes me feel? Like, it doesn't make, you know, it makes her feel bad too, because obviously you want your, you know, and basically we see that, like, you know, Gloria doesn't feel great about it, and later we have Cameron and Mitchell come in as well, as Mitchell comes in with a bunch of pickles that he got from Costco. But you know, basically he even points out too that, yeah, you never said anything about, you know, Cameron either. And, you know, so Jay does, he tells Phil and he tells you know, everyone that he loves them. And, well, not love, you know, he says he likes them, whereas Phil's like, oh, what do you like about us? And you know, it's a funny moment. And once again we have yet another moment where we have that bit of heart, and then we also have that, you know, great moment of you know, humor, as we have this sweet moment where they have a group hug, and Claire even thanks Jay for doing this for her. And with all of that, we have a final scene with Gloria and Jay having this little, you know, one of the interview conversations again, where Gloria explains that she used to dress up Manny as if he was a girl because she wanted a daughter originally. But she also says, oh, I didn't want to mess with his head, though, so instead, when he found the pictures, I just told him that it was his twin sister who died. Whereas Jay reacts accordingly. You know, we just end with this shot of his face like this, like, what the fuck? And I mean, yeah, it's pretty messed up. Again, you know, we have the heart, we have the comedy, we have just the loving message, the togetherness, I just, man, I really love this show. And I once again, I cannot say enough, if you haven't seen this show for yourself, you are doing yourself a disservice. You need to see this show. It is incredible. Highly recommend it. This is quickly becoming one of my favorite, if not my favorite show ever. I mean, it's so good on so many levels. It's incredible. I love it. You know, I love the messaging. I love the little, you know, the conversation that Alex and Gloria got to have. I like the kind of breaking down the stereotype of, like, you know, yeah, adults often don't mean, you know, you can tell me anything. When they tell a kid they can tell them anything, but in this case, no, it was. And that honesty and that, like, you know, talking to Alex kind of on the level of, like, this isn't just a little kid, but this is like a person that I can have a real conversation with, all these things, right? And how that got her to open up. I like that we saw, you know, it was the Mitchell and Cameron's story was a lot more you know, just for laughs, but it was funny to have that bit where, you know, of course, you know, Cameron just kind of is enamored with Costco after being such a snob about it originally, and, you know, just all the other moments. But of course, that the real, you know, heartfelt moment we had, of course, with you know, Jay and the others is just, I mean, it's beautiful, you know, just that thing of, like, yeah, there are a lot of people, especially from older generations like Jay's, that have a hard time expressing emotions and love, really, even for their own kids, let alone, you know, like their stepson, or, well, actually, yeah, stepsons in all of these cases, you know. But at the end of the day, they're all family, they all love each other. And yeah, it's really beautiful. Again, like, I really think the message and everything of this show is so important, especially today. Like, I really think this show was just so ahead of its time, and every episode I see, I'm brought back with, like, just, it's incredible. I mean, I'm speechless at just how well the show is done, and how much I think we need, again, this message of like love and acceptance and togetherness and all that today. Either way, though, as always, these are my thoughts. Let me know what yours are in the comments down below. Follow me on social media for more. Subscribe and ring the bell to stay up to date. Leave a like if you like. And if not, I hope you find something to do like. Later, guys. Peace and love.